Okay.
Well, good morning, because we are still on, it's 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're here in New York. Good morning to everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you are Zooming in from, StreamYarding in from, however you're Zooming in. I'm Cate Luzio. I'm the founder and CEO at Luminary, and this is Goaldigger live on LinkedIn. You know the drill. We have a fantastic conversation with incredible leaders from all different backgrounds, all different industries. And this one today is, I'm particularly excited about. Well, I'm always excited about everything, but this one is number one, just a kick-ass Luminary member, but more importantly, a kick-ass woman doing hard shit in the government, in the EEOC, and she's a judge. She's a judge. I have a friend that's a judge. That's pretty freaking cool. I'm not supposed to curse on LinkedIn. So Karen Ortiz, welcome.
Hi, Cate. I'm so excited to be here. Hello, everyone.
All right. So before we get into your story and your background and everything that you've been doing through your career, can you just explain what the EEOC is before we dive into the convo?
Yes. So the EEOC stands for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and it's an agency that was born out of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And the agency itself was charged with rooting out discrimination in employment. And so specifically what I do is I deal with employment discrimination in the federal sector, which means with federal employees and people who apply for federal jobs. And then we have other units who do private sector cases. So that's what people are probably more familiar with hearing about the EEOC's activities with private employers.
All right. So now we've got that for people that don't know what the EEOC is. But now let's go back. So you're a judge. I love saying that. I wish we could actually, at Luminary, we should just be like Judge Ortiz, right? So that's actually what we're going to start doing. Because Serby, as you know, Serby, as a good friend of yours, as our Chief Impact Officer, is going to go get her PhD. And I can't wait to call her doctor, right? We got to
I'm already calling her doctor.
Right? Exactly. All right. So let's focus on you. Give us your story. Tell us from where you came from to how you got to be in this incredible position of being a judge, which again, I just love saying. So,
well, I grew up, it really started quite early on when I was a teenager, this desire to be a judge or serve the public. I grew up a Puerto Rican family in a mostly white town on Long Island, and so I had a very specific experience being a minority or a person of color in a majority white town. So that informed a lot of my choices moving forward. And when I was in high school, we had done a moot court, Supreme Court argument, and I got to be on the Supreme Court, and that's when the bug bit. I think I was 16. So I just loved that position of sitting back and listening to both sides, and adding to that my knowledge of the body of law and my own experience, and being able to make a decision that could impact somebody. And I also liked being in that position of power.
Yeah.
So that's where it started. So eventually, I did undergrad in New York City, and then I took a year off between undergrad and law school, and I worked for a criminal defense attorney, Barry Slotnick, who is very well known in at least the New York area. He was a defense attorney, defended Bernie Goetz, defended a lot of alleged organized crime people. So I really got to see and do a lot, and I credit Barry with even adding more fuel to the fire of me wanting to stay in the law. So I worked for him, and then I went to Fordham Law School, go Rams. And they really, Fordham was really great in that it pushed public service. It really supported its students that wanted to move on into public service. So after law school, I got a job with the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, and that led to a position with the Social Security Administration as a litigator. And that's when I really understood what it meant to serve the public on a nationwide level and the important work that all the attorneys do amongst all of our agencies, and not just the attorneys, but everyone in every position. And I was so proud to be civil servant. Should I go on, Cate?
Yes, yes. It's fascinating, right? Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I've noticed too, all along the way, I got so much support, especially at the Social Security Administration, from senior attorneys who were really helping the newer attorneys grow their careers and learn and take on these big assignments that, would really lead to promotions and really robust experience that would serve us throughout our career. I mean, I got to argue in front of the Second Circuit at 30 years old, 29 years old, which is crazy. And then I had a crisis, a little like my early midlife crisis, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in the law. I took a year off, did a lot of yoga, got my teacher training, got certified, and then I decided I do want to go back. I do, this is my calling. And then I came back into the law as an administrative law judge for the Taxi and Limousine Commission. So I was hearing taxi court cases, and
TLC.
that TLC, and that is when I really, really understood on such a micro level how the decisions judges make at every level, from Supreme Court to traffic tickets, how it makes such an impact in the lives of everyday people like me and you,
Yep.
and that these decisions impact people's lives. I mean, I was hearing cases where taxi drivers were at risk of losing their licenses and their livelihoods, and how important it was to really make sure that the people coming before me understood what their rights were, understood the process itself, and felt respected and seen. Whether I ruled in their favor or not, those are three things that were really important to me. A lot of the people appearing before me in the taxi court were also, the majority were men of color. And
Yeah.
so I really got a peek into the challenges of being in that industry as a minority, a lot of times as an immigrant. And it really informed what I was doing there, who I am as a person, how I look at the world, and where I wanted to go next. So eventually, I moved on from there and worked for the MTA for New York City Transit as a legal director in a unit there, and where I oversaw other attorneys who were conducting hearings on subway tickets, things like that, turnstile jumping tickets. And so again, I would see at a very micro level how getting a ticket, transit ticket, could really affect somebody's life, and everyday New Yorkers, and also the way those rules were enforced. So it was like peeling back the curtain on all of these things that everyday New Yorkers experience, but you don't necessarily see on the news, or they're not these big sexy stories.
Right.
You're going to hear about big court cases, big Supreme Court holdings. You're not going to hear about the 16-year-old who was going for extra help, and her school Metro card was timed for to end for the day at 4, but she had to use it after and got a ticket. It's like these types of real stories. So after that, I did that for a number of years. Then I moved on to the EEOC. I had always had a mind that I wanted to go back into federal service, and this opportunity came up, and it was just the perfect fit. And I love what I do right now.
And how long have you been at the EEOC?
I'm just coming up on 3 years.
Amazing.
So it's not that long, but I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
All right. So there's so much to kind of, I think unpack is the overused word of the day, other than pivot, but to kind of pick apart here in a good way. So you did this, you clerked interned for Slotnick, right? And you did this, but you didn't decide that you wanted to go in private practice. You decided you wanted to go into being, public
Mhm.
service, civil service. Why? Like, was there something
A
in
big part of it was, when I would serve papers for Barry in court, or even as a law student in my clinical experience, I wasn't seeing a lot of women, and especially women, Black and brown women and Asian women on the bench. And that stayed with me. And I think it's important to have decision makers with all different kinds of backgrounds and experiences. So it really pulled me in that direction. I absolutely so respect attorneys that have gone into private practice, and people like Sharmeen Laka, Level Up Legal. I mean, she's doing amazing work. I think of Paige Zandri, of RTZ Zandri. uh, we need everyone everywhere, but this was my calling and where I thought I could be most of service.
civil servant, public servant, you take a year off? Like, women often think, I can't take any time off. If I take it off, I'm going to be way back in the workforce. And for a lot of women, that's happened. But you decided, I'm going to take this time off. I don't know if this is going to turn into something, but ultimately made the decision to go back. When you took that year off, more importantly, when you were trying to come back, how are you feeling? Were you like, am I going to find a job? Is this going to be
Yeah.
easy?
It was Cate, I think about your story too, about how you left finance.
Yeah.
I was actually doing very well. I was a fairly young attorney making six figures in the government, and people thought I was crazy when I stepped away. Government jobs are fairly secure even now. And I freaked out a little bit, but I just trusted that somehow I was on my path, and it could be windy, but
Yep.
I just trusted in my gut. It was hard to get back in. I can't tell you how many times I applied for jobs. I got really close and then didn't get it. So to everyone who's job seeking out there right now, stay, stay the course. I ended up eventually in my dream job. So just stay the course. Know that if you put yourself out there and you let people know what you want to do, eventually that path is going to intersect with your desires. And also, if I could just make a plug, the EEOC is hiring right now. So go to usajobs.gov, not just attorney jobs, but all level jobs all across the country. So let me just get that
I
out
love
there.
that you're
But
advocating for your employer. But I have
yeah.
so talking about this idea of staying the course, right? And it's hard, right? Right now we know the she session and 5.5 million women out of jobs, et cetera. But we often think of the private sector, right? I'm going for the job at LinkedIn. I'm going for the job at JP Morgan. You are trying to get back into the government, right? And what we
Mm-hmm.
know about, in particular, the private sector, how you get your next job is it comes from your network. Is that the same for the government?
That was a huge help. I had people that I had made connections with in prior agencies reaching out to me when there were openings. They served as fantastic references, which can never be understated. And eventually, one of the people that I had met through the Parks Department led me to finding a position with the Taxi and Limousine Commission. So, it's not like you have to aggressively network,
Yeah.
but just be mindful. And, if, and also, Cate, I think you also advocate this too, you know, if you can give. If you need to ask. It's a flow. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not so transactional.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. And I think, we use this word networking all the time and not everyone likes it. I think this is so much about when building relationships, right? And sometimes those relationships are going to be once in a blue moon that you see or talk to that person. And sometimes it's going to be all the time. but it is about investing in those relationships and then this give and take, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And in everything we do, not just in job seeking, right? It's in everything we do. Okay, so you're a woman, you're a woman of color, and you're in the U.S. government, and you're a judge. How many of those? How many of you are there on the bench? Like, are there a lot? Is it changing?
It's definitely changing within the agency itself. I think the EEOC tries to walk the walk or walk the talk, I guess. So, I have colleagues in my position across the country who are women, men, Black, Asian, brown, white, gay, straight, trans, conservative, liberal. So we really do have a wide scope of backgrounds, and I think it's actually it's a good example for other tribunals, the body of judges in the EEOC itself.
Yeah. So it's in the
I
chat.
can't really give you numbers because I don't know.
No, I just you
the top of my head, but
in the early part of your journey, like why this to get on the bench, you're like, I'm not seeing the Black and brown women. I'm not seeing the representation on that other side. And so that was sort of one of the reasons why you did this. And it's been many years. So has that changed, right, over the years? And I am assuming, and I think this is important, and in the chat, there's a lot of representation matters, see her, be her, right? So other women can see you on the bench and they're like, I can be that. I can do that. It doesn't matter what I look like or my sexual orientation or who I am. I can be there.
I hear that, and I also want to add too that I have many colleagues who are in the disabled community as well. I don't want to neglect to mention that community. I thought it was getting better, but I hear when I interview interns for positions in my office, and also when I do speaking engagements at law schools, I mean, invariably one or two students will approach me and say, it is so great to see, a woman of color come in and talk about being a judge. And I'm like, wow, it's still a thing. It's still a need. I'll be the first person to say that my biggest breaks and encouragement early on came from white men and older white men. And I know that's similar to you too, Cate. And I think there's great examples of being an ally. I mean, I got fantastic references from Barry and his partners when I was starting out. And that was so critical for me getting into those first couple of jobs I had, and still to this day, we're still in contact. So, it's more of a familial thing now, but it's still important to have that representation. And I think on some level, even some subconscious level, they knew that too. So They were like, I am going to do whatever I can to help propel this woman forward in her career.
Which is what everybody should do. Right? When you see someone that you need to help support, you see talent, it's investing in them, it's advocating for them. And clearly Barry did that, even though you didn't stay and do what he was doing. You had a different path and you took that path. And I think, familial relationship, right? It's still a relationship that you and he both invested in all through these years. And that is so important as we think about, if you're job seeking, if you're looking for a new opportunity, if you're looking for a new role. So Joanna Lovering is on the chat, of course, a very
Aww.
good friend, luminary, also works with you, and she's amazing. She keeps saying, how many times is Cate Luzio going to say judge? And I'm going to say it 1,000,000 times because it is the powerful
You know what, Cate? It's so funny. I mean, in some ways, Joanna, I work with Joanna. Joanna's is a presence coach, and I've done some work privately with her, and she's fantastic. And one of the things that came up was like, I have to own using that title. I don't like to use it as at luminary. I do, and with my colleagues, we just call each other by our first names, except for a few people who just don't want to do that, which is kind of sweet. All my interns call me Judge. And but still, every so often, I'll have a complainant who appears before me who doesn't use that title. And this happened the other day on a virtual conference, and the person said Miss, and I just said, I am addressed as Your Honor or Judge Ortiz. I Please don't address me as Miss. And and the person said, oh, I'm sorry, and then we just moved on. So it's not about shaming people or saying this is my title and puffing up my chest. It is an honor for me to work for the American people, and that is part of my job. I am a judge, and it is okay to articulate that and identify myself as that. Um,
And be proud
even
of
my
that. And be
and be proud of it. Yeah. Yes.
right? I mean, we work so hard in our lives for accolades and recognition, and this is a huge one. I mean, I don't know how many judges there are in the US government, but just being able to say that you've put in the work, you've done all of this in your career to be able to become a judge, it's also a huge level of respect. I mean, that's, to me, my father, I think, as you know, was in law enforcement. He was an FBI agent for many, many years and had friends in law enforcement, friends that were judges. And I think there is also something about paying respect for others that are in civil service or are in public service. And you have that. And I love that, particularly as a woman and a woman of color, that you are showing others that they can be there and they can be a judge or they can be a lawyer. They can go to law school. That's so important.
And I
Respect.
love having interns and mentoring them through at least part of their law school years, and again, pulling back the curtain on what it is to do the work I do. In terms of titles too, I also give, because I realize how I need to be looked at and respected at work. It's the same. If I do a lot of civilian military cases, so some of the people who appear before me will have certain titles, and I'll say, how do you prefer to be addressed? Captain, whatever their title is. What are your preferred pronouns? I have my preferred pronouns in my signature block, just as that signal. And I also want to make sure I'm saying someone's name correctly. So respect can be shown in so many ways. And that's, to call me by my appropriate title is respect towards me, and I will afford you the same respect.
Yeah. Yeah. I need a title. So let's talk about this last year.
Mm.
You went from being a judge on the bench in person to we're now all virtual, and we will be likely for the time being. Although I have heard some stuff about the government, but how has it been for you, your workload, managing all of these cases and the various trials, doing it virtually? What has that been like for you?
Well, we have the capability already. Some of my cases are across the country or overseas, because I did mention I do civilian military cases. So we already had virtual platforms. So we've just expanded it. So thankfully, all the AJs have had experience doing virtual hearings, and I have had to do virtual hearings. And I think you might recall I've actually done some at Luminary.
Yes.
I tote all my stuff over, and I go into one of those lovely rooms, and I just do what I need to do. I much prefer seeing people in person. I like to feel energy and be able to really see someone's body language fully. But there's an upside to this too. We have complainants and witnesses who maybe traveling even on an ordinary basis is difficult. They may have physical challenges that make it difficult, or they may be across the country. So, I found that in terms of holding my hearings, it was actually it ran pretty smoothly, and we also didn't have witnesses hanging around waiting in a physical space. That we can just text the witnesses and they'll come into the virtual waiting room maybe 5 minutes before they're scheduled to testify, and then they just come in, we get them in, and we get them out. So I haven't really had any issues. We'll have, there's just a lot of windows. I'll have all the parties, the witness, the court reporter, me. So, but I'm pretty techie, so that's another thing that I try to keep up with tech and whatever's advancing in my area, so that doing a pivot like that isn't so difficult or scary.
Yeah, it's just, I remember you coming in and doing those. One, I would tell everyone there's a judge downstairs holding the trial, but also just that you could be, you have the ability to be able to do that and keep going. We have a couple minutes left. I want to talk about your kind of the whole concept of Goaldigger, right? Is that we can't be ashamed about the goals that we have in our lives, or both personally and professionally. We've got to keep finding and using our voice. Is there someone in your life, Karen, that really, I guess, emphasize that, being who you are, owning who you are, finding your voice to be able to build this incredible career?
I mean, I have to credit my parents. My dad passed many, many, many years ago. So, but they planted the seed early on. And my parents came here from Puerto Rico, didn't really speak a lot of English, and managed to put three girls through college, and one who went to Maryland. Kate. My sister's at Turp, College Park. Yeah. So, and it was always, and I also think about their audacity. They came here,
Oh, we're a little, Wi-Fi is, we've lost Karen, I think.
I
Hopefully.
really,
We
I
lost you for a second,
oh, I'm
Karen.
back.
Can you say, so you're the
Yeah.
audacity of your parents. So restart
Of
from
my
there.
parents, yeah, they came from small towns in Puerto Rico and took me and my three sisters and plucked us in the middle of Long Island in a white town, thinking, that's where we were going to get the best education, and just pushed through a lot of racism, and they just, it wasn't even a question of whether you should go for your dreams. It's just, you're going to go for your dreams. That's it. That message was sent not just verbally, but in the way they supported us. They showed up for everything we did. And then also my North Star, Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She's just my personal rock star and Puerto Rican icon. So I look to her as, sort of the end all be all. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, the family aspect, right? And how much that's ingrained in you to keep working hard and going after your dreams. If as you sit and talk and mentor, these interns and other women and also men, right? It's not just about mentoring. We've got to mentor everyone. What's sort of the number one thing that you tell them to either embrace or focus on or lean into as they're building the next step or their career?
Well, I think one of the first things I tell them is, don't worry about grades. And then they look at me like, I said, I don't really care about your grades. I care about why you want to be here, why you want to do this work. And if this is not where you want to be, that's okay. Go where it's warm, go where your gut is. And that often lightens the mood, and they realize they have space around it, that their path doesn't have to look a certain way. Grades are important in that it gets you through certain gatekeepers, but at the end of the day, I tell them I was a mediocre law student. I wasn't a rock star, but I was very secure in the type of work I wanted to do, and I just was scrappy about it, and just kept moving in that direction. But and also to keep some joy about it, because if you don't have joy in what you're doing at its core, then you're just going to be unhappy, and that's not going to serve you or your clients, whatever space you're in. So that's really what I try to impart to them. But I learn just as much from my interns than they learn from me, if not more. They're
Yeah,
so smart.
it's unbelievable, right? I think especially this younger generation, it's just a different world than what you and I are around the same age, like what we grew up in. It's different, but it's remarkable too what the opportunities that women, people of color, now have. Still a long way to go, right? But women like you breaking down barriers and opening doors. And as mentioned many times in the chat, representation matters, and it so does. And we know that now more than ever, given everything that we've experienced in this past year with the Black community, with the Asian, the AAPI community. So it's pretty incredible what you're doing. Last question. So you mentioned that you love what you're doing. It's been a couple of years. So what's next? Like what's the next building block in your career within the EEOC?
Well, I was discussing this with Serbi yesterday. There is the opportunity for federal employees to serve at the border, to go on detail to assist unaccompanied minors, and so that's something I'm seriously considering, because the need is there, and I think I have a skill set that may be helpful. So it's not directly tied to the work I do, but again, it's something that calls to me. So I think with in the agency, I'm happy. I'm really happy being a judge and having interns and just getting better at my job. But there's this other opportunity that may arise that I hope will happen. And beyond that, we'll see.
We'll see. Like you said earlier, it's a long and windy path, right? I try to tell young people to come to me. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you never know where that's going to take you, which direction. But Your Honor, it has been an honor to have you on Goaldigger, and just keep going. I love personally what you're doing and the example you're setting for everyone around you, and the fact that you put yourself out there, and I know that just as you are a member of Luminary, and really it's an honor, and I will say Judge Ortiz, because as much as you're a friend and we have that relationship, I respect everything that you're doing and the career that you've built and continue to build. And really, it's been wonderful to have you on Goaldigger. Hopefully, I'll get to see you in person soon. And for those of you that don't know Karen, don't follow her, you can follow her at Karen Ortiz, ESQ. She's also Karen Ortiz on LinkedIn. And Karen, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Everyone, please, it's my tagline. Well, I have a lot of taglines, but please stay safe, stay healthy, and wear a mask.
A mask.
Wear a mask. We are so close. Karen, you're fully vaccinated or half vaccinated?
I'm fully vaxxed.
I'm half vaxxed. I got my next shot on Monday. So we're making progress. Let's not lose that progress, because we do all want to be together again. And so wear a mask. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week, and stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.